So you want my name, given name. James Lynn Light. 1952, April the 20th. Born in War Valley, Tennessee. That's an address outside of Rogersville, Tennessee. Because War Valley ain't even on the map. Grew up 4 or 5 years on the farm in War Valley. Then moved to Church Hill, 1957. That's when we got the indoor toilet and hot water in the house. Went to school at Church Hill all my life. First grade right on through high school. Then took a welding course at Gate City High School. They called it the Manpower Training Program. And they paid me $56 a week to go to school. And that was a whole lot more than I would have been making if I'd have had a public job. But I learned to weld pretty good. Done a pretty good job. Come right out of welding school, went back to work for Johnson Hilliard and been welding there for 37 years. Yeah, starting out with a flat sheet of metal. Supposed to be flat anyway. And I call that a set of dividers. A lot of people call it a compass or a protractor. I don't know exactly what they call it. I'm going to lay out the bottom. And like I say, that fascinates me. Just to watch.
Just to watch you work?
Yeah, just to watch me work. Never did see it. I've had people take pictures, but I never have actually seen it in progress.
That will be the bottom. Now I'll get the pattern.
Yeah, now that was the bottom I just laid out. And that's a scrap piece off the end of a sheet. Got 2 patterns.
All that is a reducer, like you're making a reducer from a 16-inch pipe or a reducer from a 22-inch pipe down to a 16-inch pipe.
Oh, and I always leave my tools piled up out on the table, because if I put them in my toolbox, I can't find them. Somebody will come and get something and I'll say, well, where'd you put it? I can't find it. Well, we put it back in your box. And you have to write your name all over everything. I got Lynn wrote on me every piece of metal in the shop.
This makes one complete pot. Let me trim just a little bit off of that. It makes it too hard.
And I'd like to have a nickel for every time I mash the foot pedal on that old big shear. And I always turn it off because I can't stand to hear that rascal run. And like I say, I didn't know my hands was that steady on that pair of little old Unishear. Oh, and if you don't reach around there and bend that little ear up, it'll stab you in the blood vein, make the blood flow. Oh, that's why I always turn that little end up. See, I can't even tell that my right hand is moving. Just steady as she goes. See, I'm actually pulling that piece of metal and watching where that blade is going. Well, like I say, that's fascinating. Oh, I can't turn the tool off.
Can't even turn it off. Okay, now that's flat, so we got to get it convex or concave, whichever. We got a machine right here to do that. Now this is what raises things. Don't put that bottom.
Oh, and that's what I call bumping the bottom. It's actually you got two tools, yeah, and if you tighten it too tight, you have to back it off just a little bit before you can screw it up a little bit, make it go a little bit deeper. And I call that bumping the bottom. We've got a certain place over there, I've done so many of them. You find exactly the right spot and set it on a 90-degree angle and just go to bump. You got a convex on top and a concave on the bottom, and it just
The reason I go around the edge like that, if you don't, it'll have crinkles in it.
Sorry?
it's like it's a concave going into a convex, and it causes that to dish up just like the bottom of I guess a copper kettle. It causes to have a little dish in it, and it makes it a whole lot stiffer. If you just had a flat piece of metal, it'd wave and wiggle, but if you got just a little bit of convex or concave, that is a pull max. They call it a pull max machine, and it was made in Sweden. And right now, if you could get one of them, if you could find one. The last account I had, it was about $18,000. And just by looking at it, it don't look all that impressive, but that is solid. That is solid steel. Weighs a ton. I mean, and the reason I wipe it because that old pull max has got a seal leaking.
Seal leaking in that thing,
and that oil gets all over it.
You can tell it needs a lot more work.
Makes it hard to weld if it's got oil on it.
Why is that?
That oil contaminates it, on aluminum especially. If you try to weld aluminum with paint or oil, even a magic marker, it makes it hard to weld because I don't know what it is about the high frequency on that Hilliard. It will not burn through that, even a magic marker. But oil or anything, it contaminates the weld. Just makes it bubble and be porous. And a lot of people don't realize that. They'll try to weld in rust, and you can't weld in rust. And you'd think you'd get your fingers up under that thing, but you can't. It's just got a 3/16 of an inch jump. I guess if you tried to stick your finger up under it, you could pinch it a little bit. But I've never found anybody that likes to bump a bottom better than I do. But I like to see it come out a finished product. And I'll stand there and bump. Till it don't have any wave left in it. And sometimes that'll shake the wash off your wrist.
Too bad. I need to go over it another time or two.
I must have declared it done.
That way I can tell whether it's going to be a bottom for a pot or not. And it always does that. I never have had one when you first lay it up on the table, it just lays down. Except in stainless. Stainless does different than what copper does. That's just a small, they used to call this a jelly pot. You just make jelly or a small amount of apple butter in it. Or preserves, you can make apple jelly, anything you want. Of course, I've still got to grind all this weld off.
You don't use clamps usually, right? I mean, you've just been holding it by hand like that?
I usually hold everything by hand, and that way I got, I can twist it and scoot it around wherever I need it.
And what kind of gauge is that you use? The copper gauge? I mean, that looks pretty flexible, but the
Oh yeah,
the
it's
pot-
soft. It's soft copper, but they call it 32-ounce copper. It weighs 2 pounds to the square foot. It's not real flimsy. It's about 18 gauge, not quite 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's real soft. But the brass and the stainless hard as a bull's horn, buddy. I mean, ain't no way you're gonna dent it.
How's that for working with?
Oh, the stainless
Yeah.
or the brass? Well, the brass is actually harder than the stainless. You can't cut it with that little pair of nibblers that I've got right there, unishear. You about have to saw it. And it's hard. It's a lot thicker though. It's like another 30-second thicker. But the only reason they used copper and brass was because it was easy to work, and they didn't actually have a good grade of stainless back in the 20s and 30s. But stainless makes a good pot. Well, that's still fascinating.
What type of work do you do during the work day there?
Mostly industrial MIG welding with that little blue machine. That's the MIG, the one that automatically shoots out the wire, or anything to do with surgical stainless, like the hospital. A lot of times they'll want I call it a stirrup, but it's the thing they put on the operating table. Where they have to bind your arm or your hand or something. And when I first started making them, they said it was for amputation, where they would strap your arm down and do surgery on it, or even cut it off. But it was just a 5/8 round rod with like a saddle welded on top, and it fit down in a slot. And they said they actually used it on the surgical side. But I do a lot of aluminum welding. I use a shear now. The edges are nice and straight. But usually it's industrial type stuff. Like on that table that we just then passed, big old electrical box. We built a bunch of electrical enclosures for the coal mines. Oh, there I'm looking down in the slot to make sure the line is lined up on the edge of the shear before I cut it off. And I don't know whether you can hear the sound of it or not, but it goes ka-choo, ka-choo when you hit that pedal. And sometimes they have 10,000 little shims to cut, and my table's right there beside of it.
And it don't actually give you a headache, but it makes you want to go outside. Just, oh, ka-chonk, ka-chonk, ka-chonk. Yeah, that old Pearson machine, that old big one that we're just now going around, they actually had to come in there and dig the concrete out and dig a deep, big hole and pour it back full of concrete. That is a powerful machine. It'll cut 3/8 inch plate 10 foot long, and it shears it off just with hydraulic pressure.
Now they're all the same green. Is that an industrial green, a standard green?
Yeah, and I remember when we painted a lot of that. They hired me in 1970. I mean, for a big job of some sort had to be done. Well, it got slow, which that's the way stuff goes. And it got so slow that they had even the mechanics painting everything in there, green and yellow, or sweeping the floor.
Perhaps worth about as much as pot anymore. I used to sell scrap copper. I got 12 cents a pound for it. Now it's like $1.15 just for the scrap.
Should have kept it for a couple of years.
Yeah, good. Now, do you want to actually see me pack one?
Sure.
I believe I'll do it on Daryl's paper. This machine just does not start right.
Oh, look how clean Daryl's table is compared to mine. Mine's just a piled up junk. Oh, I must have had a production going that day. I had 3 or 4 ready. Oh, I brought my chair over there though, because that's the only one I can weld in.
See, this is what blows your filter out. When I do that, the top of it spreads out over 1/4 of an inch, but you can let that cool just a second, and it'll come right on back in. I'll put just a little bit to keep it free.
That is fascinating. But now I'm waiting on it every time. I'll put a good tack on it, and that gap comes open up at the top, and you can actually see it close up even in your film.
You can see it there. Then it goes back.
Then you have to go up the top, put one little tack.
That's the first time I've ever looked at welding, because you're not supposed to look at it.
Yeah, he thought it would fry his
Camera, but it kept up.
it just
Wow.
kept going. Knowing that little thing on the end of that, it looks like airbrush. Well, see, I must have stuck it to it. It's made out of ceramic, just like a real good quality coffee cup. And you can't grind it. If a piece of it flies off, you just have to throw it away. Because once it gets so much heat on it, especially with aluminum, if you get that ceramic just pure, bright, white, red, hot, there'll be a big hunk of it just fall off. Oh, feel of it, make sure it's smooth. Put the little tack at the bottom, keep it popping loose. Then start at the top. Smooth as silk. Oh, that little thumb just a getting. It's a wonder I got a thumb joint left. See, it's starting to pucker out a little bit, so you have to peck it back in. And if you peck it while it's hot, it moves real easy.
And what's that doing?
It pecks it comes out towards you when you weld it. It'll be flat. If you weld it, it'll come towards you. And you have to peck it back. And it just saves you a whole lot of work later on. When you actually do put it up on the rail and peck it. That put your eyes out, didn't it? Oh, I remember one time I was welding on top of the roof up at rental uniform, stainless steel gutter. And it started, no, it was the sun was shining so bright that it was shining the inside of my welding helmet, and I couldn't even see the weld that I was supposed to be making. And Tommy Job was a helper, and I had him to hold a piece of cardboard so the sun wouldn't be shining down in my helmet. And he had been down in there tearing insulation out, trying to find a place to put that gutter down between two roofs that come together. And he couldn't tell the arc that I was making from the sunshine. Well, he was out of work 3 or 4 days over that. It just cooked his eyes. I mean, plus the insulation had got in them and irritated them to start with. But the guy that he was helping, named Lynn Cassidy, he had some kind of a thing going on with his eyes. They was bug eyes, stuck out. And he'd pass by a welder and it'd burn his eye. Of course, old Lynn's dead now. But he was a hateful old codger. Oh, we're going to the rail again. We're going to beat that thing. And like I say, when you hear that rail ring, you know you've got it down. Look how easy you have to hit that. Because it's soft.
You can hear it ring when it comes in contact with the rail.
And I wish I really had put a number on each one of them things. Each one is individual. I mean, there's some little something different about every one you make. I guess it's just like if you were making jewelry or something, you know, pick it out. And I always did put my finger out there on the end of that hammer. And I've actually made my fingers sore pecking like that, just hours and hours at a time. And you have to roll that over just like a quarter of an inch off of the table, because if it's laying against that cold steel table, you cannot fuse that. It has to be up off of the table.
Why is that?
Well, that table takes up so much of your heat that you have to have it rolled over just a quarter of an inch off of that table. I mean, you can, and I've done it, but you have to run the amperage way up on that machine. If you've got it laying flat against the table, it'll mess you up. And I don't know whether you can see that, just tiny little movement with that right hand. As you're welding out through there, you'll see little fellers that you have to blend in. And then you roll it over till it is flat on the table. Then do your pecking. That's going the opposite direction of what I was doing on the rail, because it'll pucker up towards you again. Every which way you're welding, that's the way it'll pucker. And oh, feel how smooth? Ah, yeah. Feel how rough? Then you roll it up till it's just about a quarter of an inch off the table. Do the same thing again. And the only time you'll see my hand move is if I do run across some kind of a little irregularity. I'll wiggle that hand just a little bit.
believe that was record time. It usually takes about 7 hours. I mean to start and finish, complete. Build the ears and the ring. So I'll get a box. Okay. And you'll see me touch that foot pedal. Oh, and work it in. If it ain't a fusion to suit me, I'll wiggle that hand. That's the only time you're supposed to move your hand, is when you're wiggling it in. They call that walking the cup. If you wiggle that cup, you're not supposed to do, well, I mean, in that case you can, but if you're making a continuous weld and you walk that cup, it makes your bead look different. I look like some kind of a space cowboy. American space cowboy. Look at that old toolbox in the background back there, that red one. I've had that thing as long as I've been there too. Oh, peck, 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 peck. I'm good at pecking. I don't know why I turned it up and looked inside. Now comes the good part. And it gets so hot. See how I don't walk the cup? I'm just bringing it right on around.
Oh, what is it I've always said? Poor dog won't wag his own tail. That's about the only thing I can do is weld.
Pretty smooth.
That's a beautiful thing.
The inside now, look what a gob I've got. That's exactly what I wanted. I've got to melt that again to make it smooth.
So what's that you're doing?
With a wire brush, wiping part of the oxide off of the weld where it comes through on the inside. If you don't, it just contaminates it the next time you go to weld it. Because there's no argon or anything up under that pot. So when you weld it from the outside, it creates an oxide on the inside.
Cool off for just a minute. Always put something beside it. I had one done one day over there, and I reached to get something, and I heard that pot hit the floor. Rolled off the table. Put a big dent in the bottom.
That's the only way I can see that little corner. Have your head stuck up in the pot. Then you weld about 6 or 8 inches. And what I'm doing is just melting that bead that was so big on the inside, just fusing it, making it come back into the corner.
Well, I was wondering about that because you didn't have your other hand, you didn't have the
Oh no, there ain't no rod involved in it. Now on the stainless ones and the brass ones, you have to put rod. But the copper, you can meld it, I mean if you do it right, there'll be a bigger bead on the inside of the pot than there was on the outside. And you just have to fuse it back. That's why I like that big bead on the inside. And it'll be so slick you don't even have to grind it. Or a lot of times if you're welding early of a morning or late of a night, bugs will fly in there and commit suicide. And that is so hot and so intense it just vaporizes them. I mean, oh, it's still hot. Oh, yeah. Put your glove back on.
And we're letting the fan blow on it for a minute. So my daddy was shooting this, he seen me set a pot down on its bottom.
Oh.
Okay. That's probably smooth and cool enough to handle by now. Now I have to put one aside. Do you want that pair of gloves? This one.
Oh, we're going to go up there and roll the edge. Old Rob was quite good at that after he found out exactly what we were doing. I I didn't know my pocket was turned the wrong side out.
Is that better? Yeah.
No, explaining you have to start flat. Now Rob will get tickled here in a
Would it be
minute.
better that I turn? Is that a less skilled position?
All I try to do is, a lot of people run this thing plumb around there, and it ain't really, it's about like that. So that this point and the back point are the same. You know, you go ahead and raise it up. Can you imagine doing it by yourself?
No, I can't.
I mean, like I say, it's and I'm guiding with my hand over here too.
All right, good.
That's how it plays.
And that well's good as metal, huh?
Oh yeah, probably better. It's a little bit thicker. And I used to grind all well off, but I quit doing that. Okay, now we have to go up just like that. It usually takes about 3 trips.
Isn't it something?
Had to been this one to do that. Now it comes to where you can't see it.
Oh, okay.
About like that. But I've already got the groove to go by. Man, I was probably 15 years younger then too. Almost straight up. There we go.
And he can't see where it's going.
Incredible machine. It's so simple.
Yeah, they call this a landstone machine, and that's what the fitting or whatever you call it, the way you put pipe together, you landstone it. And if you're going to put a flange on a piece of duct or pipe, okay, we scunned it. Okay.
Isn't that something?
And that's what I beat over on my ring.
All right, what's next?
Next is beating that ring over. Back at Daryl's table again.
And I usually would clean the oxide, that blue, purple, and stuff off before I beat it over, but It don't hurt anything. And that little piece of copper I put under there is just to keep it from scratching.
If you keep letting that ride up, it makes the ring look like it's got a slope on it.
Yeah, I told Rob a while ago, I think I hit one pot one time. And all of them I've made.
How much softer it is there where I live.
Oh, and when you get around there to that blue and purple looking, it gets so soft. It anneals the metal. It's 10 times easier to beat over right in there where it's discolored.
Does that harden it all, or have you weakened the metal?
In a way, it don't do either. But in that stage, while it's still warm or hot, it's annealed, and it just makes it softer and softer and softer. Don't it look like that hammer's sliding sideways every time I hit? And it probably is the way I hit. But now I've probably done hit that pot 400 times and I ain't even halfway around it yet. Just a matter of peck, peck, peck. And if you don't pull that ring down against that, it makes it have a funny curve to it.
War finish. What is war
Yeah, that's
finish?
it. That's the 1943. That is, that was that old surplus stuff. And like I say, we bought that roll from AFG when they quit doing their sheet metal work. And before that, we got this electric roll, we rolled everything by hand. I mean, you cranked it, and it would wear you out. If you had 300 rings to roll, well, if it ain't coming up right at your nose, you know you've got too much roll with it.
That turned out to be 22. I'm through. 2 1/4, that's close. Now then. Yeah, if it's coming right at my nose, I pretty much know it is. I've rolled 300 of them, oh goodness.
How many men are working there?
Right now, 8 people. And when I first started, there's 125 tried to move around in that same shop. Couldn't even walk. Oh, look there. Hard labor going on. Run it in there and bend it up.
Okay, then finish rolling it on this little machine right here.
Then take it over to the bender and finish bending it.
Yeah, now what is this here?
That's a bender. You can do amazing things with that little bastard. You can adjust up and down, put big bends, little bends. It gets a little bit tough after you get past what I'm doing right there on the 3/8 rod. It'll bend the half inch.
Okay. About as crooked as I ever did roll one.
Yeah, and that's that same old war production saw that I've been using for the last 37 years.
All the shavings are just flying. Must have had a good blade on it that day. Then take it over to the wire brush. Now I've got to run it through the wire brush. Just a lot of water is what it's amounting to. Brush that little rough edge off. The sparks just fly. Already had these pre-made, but that's how the same principle, just rolling. That's the rivet sets and the rivets. I have to look at my drill bits every time. I put them down that old bucket and I have to go through them and pick out which one. I don't know why I do that. I don't know why I don't just put the right one. Of course, I've done got them made up. That's what one of those look like. That's what they look like after they're welded and turn black. I'll have to get the rail. And that's an old rivet set that Daddy had. And a rivet set is something that they used to use all the time. They called them tenner's rivets. And I'm going to have to squeeze that in. It looks way too big. Oh yeah, squeeze it. Yeah, that's how they used to put pipe together. They'd drill holes and put those rivets in it, and then they had to buck a rivet. They called it bucking the rivet. And that's why we had the rail. You had to have a solid surface to beat that rivet down on, and they just called it bucking the rivet. amazing.
Yeah, and I always like to let my bale hang over the side. Just a little bit. That way apple butter don't get stuck between the ring and the bale. And then I'll probably reach up inside there with the, I always do that with a bale. Yeah, I'll scrape it. Or there I use the rivet set to knock the burrs off on the inside. Yeah, I'm getting ready to buck that rivet. It's got a round hole the same size as that rivet in that rivet set. And then I just peck around on it. And then on the rivet set, it's got a round part that makes the top of that rivet turn round. And I'm going to probably, yeah, I'm going to use the, and set that rivet. That's what you call it. Call it setting it when you hit it with that part that just got the little hole in it. Then you peck it a little bit and then hit it with the buck thing again, and it causes that little round edge on it. And people anymore don't even know what a rivet set is. And there's a spider. A lot of people call it a rack, but a three-legged spider cannot turn over. It's just like a three-legged stool that people used to milk cows. A three-legged stool cannot turn over. Oh, and that's that old slow grinder. I like that slow grinder because you can put pressure on it. And what I'm doing is just cutting the excess copper off. And boy, after you do that and smoke a cigarette, it tastes exactly like you've had an old penny in your mouth. Of course, I welded for years. I've welded a ton of lead over the years, and copper and brass and aluminum. And then they finally come out and tell you, well, it causes cancer. I want you to look what precedes you. Oh. Now that's just a, look how nasty that still looks. But now that thing will be as shiny as a penny when I get done. Oh, like I say, that's just like pulling teeth in a way, because you've got to control that thing. I mean, you're in a tension, or a strain. I don't strain.
So you're pretty well focused to learn what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to watch what you're doing. Now that black, the black is the oxide. Now the blue and the rainbow colors, that's just a coloration. The way copper would if you'd heated a penny up. But the oxide is what will actually, it'll poison you. Oh, there's the thing to keep it rolling off the table. You don't never want one to roll off the table again.
Now that's being run by air, right?
Air, yeah, I started to say that air tool, one of the best things that ever come along. Because no electricity involved, can't shock you, can't short out.
And that the force of the air is turning a turbine or something?
Yeah, it's just a little, well, I guess you'd call it impeller or something inside of that tool. Takes the place of electricity and turns the turbine. Of course, it takes 90 pounds of air to turn that.
And as I recall, the compressor was quite a beast.
Oh, it is. And when I first went to work there, they had one little old compressor back there. And at that time, we was making all the big toolboxes for the Eastman. And at the same time, Fred had got a job doing something for one of the cotton mills or something. Had to be real slick inside. Oh, I had to reach and start the grinder. But you got to do it a certain way. See, I'm coming left to right down through there. So that wheel will be turning this way, going against that wheel. If you don't, it'll fling the wires out.
Like a new penny.
Oh, ain't that pretty?
Most people years ago would put silver dollars in the bottom. Unless it's boiling a ham, then you'd put all the silverware that you had in the house. Spoons, knives, forks, anything made out of metal to keep the ham from touching the bottom. You just let it boil. Because if it touched the bottom, it's scored. But now this is a long process, 5 or 6 hours to make that much apple butter stand there and stir that pot. And you can't leave it. Not if you've got a natural wood fire. It's just a... And my daddy liked to handle 7 foot long where he could stand way back here. Of course now he built a roaring fire under here. I mean he wanted it done quick. But he'd build a fire and stand back.
He power cook.
Power cook. Everything he done, he wanted to power cook. Well, that's like me. I'm the same way. Yeah.
You gonna be making any apple butter this fall?
Am I going to make any? Yeah, probably apple butter, pear butter, or Cushaw butter, or something. Yeah.
Well, that shows the essence of it. What about that?